The Trump administration has decided to put forward 20 billion smackaroons, $20 billion towards the Argentine economy to switch them out for the Argentinian currency in order to prop up their currency. See, uh, Argent the Argentines have decided that they're going to have a partially dollarized economy, meaning that when you go to Argentina, there's a lot of business that is done not only in their domestic currency and what they domestically produce, but also in dollars because the dollar keeps value quite steadily. And so when you have a currency that has had inflation problems and devaluation problems, and that there's been a publicly government announced number and rate for what the currency is worth, and then there's a blue rate, what is more commonly known as like the real rate. That's a problem. And so people have used the US dollar as something that is more stable because the dollar is seen as a currency that is stable. But in President Milei's attempts to stabilize the economy, cut government spending, implement his anarcho-capitalist beliefs, and push forward with the stabilization of the economy, he's found a problem that has not just plagued him but has plagued others. Uh, he needs money to defend the currency. He needs money to keep the currency at a decent value so he doesn't have another crisis, so it doesn't spiral. The problem is they've already taken quite a lot of money from the IMF. In fact, the IMF's largest ever loan of what I believe was like 47 or 57 billion dollars was done in 2018 to Argentina. So Argentina had really pulled on the purse strings of all these international organizations to empty their pockets into their pocket, and is having trouble enough trying to pay back that. Not saying they're ever going to all of it, but pay back what they can. So that's already a problem for Argentina. So going back to the IMF, going back to these organizations that Milei targeted and critiqued people for going to, I don't know if that's really the plan, Chief. And so the plan became going to the United States government and getting them to exchange you $20 billion. Now, mind you, Donald Trump did not go to Congress to ask for $20 billion. And if you're going to take $20 billion out of the United States and give it over to the Argentinians, you think that Congress should know about it. You think Congress should have a say. The most specifically elected representatives to represent districts across the country, they should get a say when giving a country $20 billion, especially when Donald Trump was elected on a mandate of America First, stabilize the economy, and that we don't want to give out any more big handouts on the international stage. We don't want to get taken advantage of anymore. We're going to be cold cut business people. We don't want to get taken advantage of. We don't want to give out all these free handouts. And the big example that he kept bringing up was Ukraine. It became the Republican punching bag on the campaign trail was, oh, the Ukrainians got this free thing and the Ukrainians got that free thing. I will tell you, going on the front line and listening to how much of a Ukrainian serviceman's equipment bag and his uniform is purchased out of his own pocket, it makes you question exactly the way that they emphasize it. If they might be emphasizing $350 billion in a way that's a lie, since it isn't $350 billion, that's double what it actually was. But $20 billion, that's a lot of money. Why doesn't he go to Congress? Because they're not going to Congress. They use a trick where the Treasury has $220 billion at its disposal that it's supposed to generally have on reserve, that we're deciding to take from that and give to Argentina. And by doing that, he does not have to go through Congress. He can subvert Congress and go straight to the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bassett, and get him to do it. Mind you, this is the same country that is currently selling its soybeans to China and making a huge profit, taking up our previous market share as American soybean farmers in Iowa and North Dakota are suffering, and many of them are facing bankruptcy and pleading for the government, praying for the government to do something, as these tariffs are tearing them apart. And as these tariffs are tearing them apart, as these tariffs are hurting these soybean farmers, right after we sign over those $20 billion to the Argentinians, they take up our previous market share, both making them a pretty penny, losing us the sales, and helping solve China's problem of a soybean shortage. So that's quite a problem for us. That's quite a problem for American soybean farmers. And we're going to be giving $20 billion to those who are their direct competitors. We're going to give $20 billion to a government to prop it up at the same time that it is undercutting us, not just in the marketplace, but directly in this period of high-stakes negotiations where we've turned on the economic screws that are not only hurting the Chinese, it is hurting the Chinese, is also hurting Americans, including, of course, most notably, those who are being discussed, soybean farmers. So, $20 billion. You want to know the kicker? It's not just $20 billion. It's actually $40 billion. $20 billion in U.S. funds, and the government is currently trying to gather another $20 billion to help back the peso out of private investors. So the president is taking time to call up this investor and that investor, not just get $20 billion for the Argentines, but $40 billion for the Argentines. Now, how important is the Argentine economy for the United States? Not very. Now, I'm not saying it has no effect. Of course, you know, if the Argentine economy is doing good, I'm sure it has some positive downstream effect. But does it really directly affect us? Not really that much, no. And so it's not like they have any like specific chokehold on any rare earth metal or a specific like farmed good or anything like that. And so this leaves me in a precarious position because I'm trying to listen to the Trump administration justify why, you know, they gave all this money over to their administration. And I've gotten two responses, right? The first response is we need to help Argentina because they're in a bad place and they're pushing a good philosophy and it's a good country and we need to help them. They're in crisis. And it's something along these themes.
What's the benefit for United States in helping this way Argentina?
Just helping a great philosophy take over a great country. Argentina is one of the most beautiful countries that I've ever seen. And we want to see it succeed. It's very simple. I mean, we don't have to do it. It's not going to make a big difference for our country, but it will in terms of South America. If Argentina does well, you're going to have others following, and a lot of others are following.
You hear that? Even Trump himself acknowledging it won't do a lot for us. Here is him going on the farmers, on the idea that, hey, look, what do you have to say to farmers that feel that this deal is benefiting the Argentinians who are selling these soybeans more than them, as they still don't have any support from the federal government to make up for their catastrophic losses this year?
What do you have to say to U.S. farmers who feel that the deal is benefiting Argentina more than it is them, as they are
Argentina's fighting for its life, young lady. You don't know anything about it. They're fighting for their life. Nothing's benefiting Argentina. They're fighting for their life. You understand what that means? They have no money. They have no anything. They're fighting so hard to survive. If I can help them survive in a free world, I happen happen to like the president of Argentina. I think he's trying to do the best he can, but don't make it sound like they're doing great. They are dying. All right? They're dying.
So he talks about this idea of it generally be good for the region and like XYZ, but that doesn't seem to really make much sense. That doesn't seem to really make much sense. He says it isn't really going to help them much. But you know what he says? I like the president. And in the last comment, it was, I like their philosophy. And so you know what the other one is? And this is made very explicit when Trump said, this support for Argentina, this $20 billion, then made to $40 billion, is dependent upon the party of Javier Milei winning the parliamentary elections later this month, actually. Meaning that potentially this entire deal could go up in flames if Javier Milei has a bad election. And that this doesn't really even seem like a deal with a country, more like a deal with a president who might very well not have that much power in the country after the parliamentary elections. And the future of Argentina is very much in the air. So it seems like, honestly, motivated in large part by trying to help his political ally, Javier Milei, stay in power in Argentina as Milei starts to lose more and more and more support. And the odds are, going into the parliamentary elections, that the opposition is actually going to gain in leaps and bounds. And so to me, what it really looks like is Donald Trump is talking about $20 to $40 billion for the Argentinians to help his political ally. Now, mind you, when he says, oh, they're dying, they're fighting, they're struggling, they're fighting for survival, why isn't that language ever used about the Ukrainians? Why isn't this talk of, oh, they're fighting for survival, they need that support, they need it? Why is that never extended to the air defense systems that are necessary for Ukraine to defend its cities, or the missile systems that are necessary to knock out the drones that terrorize civilians on a daily basis? Why is it only applied to the country that continues to be poorly economically managed? And it is decisions by the government that has put them there, not bombings from a separate government that has come in and invaded. So Donald Trump's sympathy seems to be layered. And when I say layered, I mean have very thick on the top, very thin at its core when it comes to the war, and very thick on the bottom.